Happy Monday, everyone. Hope you had a great weekend. I'm your host, Shad Dales, and welcome to the TDR Trade to Black podcast. Why you should watch this podcast here today? Well, cannabis is catching a bid. There is some interesting news involving Florida Governor Ron DeSantis confirming some interesting information about the ballot next year for adult use and what company is catching maybe a little bit of a run here today. Let's find out that as well. Some huge, strong growth numbers towards crypto. How big did it grow in 2023? We're going to outline that here in our TDR Trade to Black podcast here today. So let's welcome in TDR co-host Anthony Verrill. Good to see you, sir, and hope you had a great weekend.
Good to see you as well. It was good. It's nice little NFL playoff weekend. Got a bunch of stuff done, and now we're back. It's a good Monday.
I know. Cannabis catching a little bit of a bid, I think, towards the I didn't get a chance to see too much of it towards the market closing at the end, but how did we end up closing?
It is. There's rumors swirling all over the place. You've got Ron DeSantis and Don Murphy talking about Florida. You got Boris Jordan saying that on Bloomberg, of all places, Boris is saying that safe banking might be further along than we think. Could be a potential vote in March. There's just a bunch of stuff going on into the positive. We got the boys lawsuit should have either a continuation or some sort of mentioning tomorrow. There's a lot of irons in the fire and a lot of conversations, and the entire sector caught a bid today, which was nice to see.
Boris Jordan, Bloomberg Television, saying that we could see a vote as early as March regarding safe banking. It's a bold statement again, and you wonder what he's seeing or hearing that makes him feel confident that we could get some sort of vote, especially when we had cannabis lobbyist Don Murphy on last week, who seems to think that the vote for safe banking probably won't happen until the lame duck session, which is towards the end of this calendar year. So what do you believe, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you should. I mean, my honest opinion at this point with Schedule 3, with safe banking, don't believe anybody. Form your own opinions. Do what you want to do with your money, and just make as accurate as a guess as you can as to what you think the outcome is going to be, and just, like I said, act accordingly. Because Boris has said safe banking was coming a couple times. He wasn't correct in regards to timing. We like to sit here and just pontificate about Schedule 3.
Yeah.
We think it's going to happen in Q1 or Q2. It's a lot of conjecture. I mean, it's do your own research, form your opinions, and just do what you will with the information that's out there.
Yeah, well, I do think that maybe this has something to do with garnering some interest or attention with some of the institutions, because let's face it, they're not really looking at this until we see some actual movement. But I think any publicity is probably good publicity when you're trying to generate awareness towards this industry right now. But it'll remain to be seen. We'll put it at that. Let's begin with Into the Wire, the basically outlining the biggest headlines: cannabis, psychedelics, crypto, and AI. We begin with news from the Cannabist Company Holdings, who announced today they have entered into a binding agreement with a certain group of offshore institutional investors for common shares of the company. So break this down for us on what was included and at what price, Anthony.
Yeah, so this was a continuation of the original announcement of converting their debt to equity in that $25 million tranche. As per this, the first $5 million tranche is going to be converted. I think it was at 41 cents Canadian, which is a discount to market. 41 cents per common share, and the 12.5% discount to the 5-day VWAP on the stock will be converted. I think it's by February 29th, so within the next month. The remainder of it, the $15 million of that tranche, will have until June 30th, 2024 to convert. So if there is a Schedule 3 announcement, if there's a catalyst within the stock, that stock is going to convert at a much higher price than the 41 cents for the original $5 million tranche. So there is some protection built in here. The good thing is the debt holder is willing to convert to equity Some will say that this is dilutive, which I mean, sure, it is in nature by definition, but at the same time, they're shoring up the balance sheet, they're restructuring it, and they're getting the debt off of it to ensure that the balance sheet is a lot healthier going into the future.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting interesting to see if we're going to see more and more announcements like this, because we're seeing and hearing there's a lot of interest regarding these tier 2 companies that have short-term upswing pertaining to this space right now, but curious to see whether or not we get more and more announcements like this involving other companies here in the next few months. Obviously, if we see rescheduling take place and announced, but from the
I think we're going
conversation,
to have. I think we're going to have. We're going to see many more of these announcements.
yeah,
Surely, because of the amount of debt that is on these businesses, the amount of debt that needs to be addressed within these businesses, and a lot of these companies aren't sitting on boatloads of cash right now.
yeah,
The easiest thing to do, and it's not always what the debt holder wants to do, is to convert the debt into equity, get it off the books, convert it into the equity, and then just be on their way. It is a shore of confidence if the debt holders do want to convert to equity versus get repaid back at these maturity dates
yeah.
that are on these financial instruments.
Yeah, it's amazing as little as $5 and $10 million right now in this space and how much it can make, it can move. But when you look at some of these companies, as I've outlined, and as we've said, interest with regards to tier 2, we see a lot of conversations continue to happen around the cannabis. There's conversations regarding the juices of the world, the air wellnesses. These are companies that have ripped historically, and as Dan Aaron said a couple of weeks back, we probably will see a lot of that same sort of play out if we see rescheduling. So again, we will remain to hear some of these announcements if they indeed do happen, and to whom, right?
Yeah, I mean that's probably a correct assumption. I mean, the general consensus around the industry from a trading perspective is tier twos and tier threes would have the
Yeah,
most torque on a rescheduling announcement, which leads me to believe that this time around they might not.
yeah,
Usually, when everybody thinks something's going to happen, it doesn't happen again. Air happened to have a hell of a lot of torque on it with the HHS announcement,
yep,
going from the 70s to $2.60, $2.80 on that move, which was big. I mean, we saw Jushi and the Cannabist rip. I mean, we could see quality rip on a Schedule 3 announcement, because I mean, when you want to factor in things like the adult use ballot initiative in Florida potentially getting on the ballot in November, which is a big point today that's been crossed, paired with Schedule 3 and the free cash flow that can be produced. I mean, there's still a lot of value yet to be determined and yet to be identified within these businesses.
yeah. I tried to push Dan the chart man on Friday as to how this plays out, like short term. Like he kind of outlined some of the companies he's watching and why. But when we talk about the major MSOs, I had Matt Zorn, got some great feedback from him. Actually, the post there, the video. If you haven't seen that, Matt Zorn, the attorney that basically filed the lawsuit for the HHS documentation that was released 2 weeks ago, had some really, really interesting information that he shared with us. But
Yeah.
this is going to take a lot of time and a lot of paperwork once rescheduling is announced. Like, what exactly is involved in that announcement? But based off of that, you're going to want to see a lot of institutions that have actually some thorough information that's written out as to what's the framework and how it's going to work and what's the timeline pertaining to that, which is when I think a lot of the top tier MSOs will be on the radar for a lot of these companies. But timeline wise, I was trying to push Dan a little bit as to what he was thinking, as to, as much as they should be getting a lot of attention short term, a lot of the tier 2s are the ones that get more attention than others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, time will tell, but I firmly believe institutions aren't going to come until this is implemented.
Yeah.
Until this is implemented, and you can actually see what is going to happen with these companies, because they've got all the time in the world. They don't
Yeah.
need to act.
Yeah. You brought up Ron DeSantis, so let's bring that up into headline number 2 into the wire. This is the TDR Trade of Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales, along with Anthony Verrill, and a story from Marijuana Moment that cannabis lobbyist Don Murphy shared as well on his Twitter account, which outlined that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has confirmed that he thinks the court is going to approve that the adult use ballot will be voted on come November. If that's true, that's industry moving.
Very much so. So, I mean, the exact quote was, "I think the court is going to approve that." as it relates to the adult use ballot initiative, which the court is going to approve it being on the ballot initiative come November.
Yeah.
We in the state of Florida still need above a 60% turnout in favor of it to pass. Thanks to Kim Rivers and Smart and Safe Florida, that's probably going to happen as her continued efforts will parlay into those initiatives. This is great. I mean, I bought more Consortium today. Consortium ended up the day about 27% to the upside. I was a shareholder in Consortium before
Big
that,
day.
started buying
Big
it
day.
last week. There were a couple other big names in Florida. I saw a lot of news around around Air's business in Florida. Don't you think that's going to be one of the 800-pound gorillas? Like everyone was talking about Air. I was really taken back by why people weren't talking about Verano. I mean, Move is a large operator in the state of Florida. Verano is a tier 1 business. Verano is a great company. It's almost like Verano's become an afterthought amongst the tier 1s. And that's only from what I'm seeing from a social sentiment on Twitter. Really, no one's really talking about them. Me personally,
I know.
this
You're right.
isn't financial advice, but if I was going to
Danny even
bet
highlighted that on Friday.
Do I?
Danny even highlighted that on Friday about Verano. But anyways, go on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not financial advice, but I mean, if I was going to go into one of those names based off their Florida footprint and their overall business, I'm betting that it's got a 70 million share count. It's probably going to get a bunch of torque on an announcement on pure fundamentals.
Yeah.
Verano's the better play there.
Yeah.
By far. I think Verano's got better product in the state of Florida. As it relates to the overall product that's in the building. I was really surprised not to see that, but I mean, I think this is going to reverberate around all week and for the weeks to come. I mean, Florida's been a big topic of conversation for the sector. Florida's been something that I've said fundamentally is a paradigm shifting catalyst for the sector. And I mean, it's funny to see that as soon as Ron DeSantis drops out of the presidential race, he starts to talk about cannabis again, which I was saying he's pandering to the voters in Iowa. He's pandering to the voters that he
Good
thinks
point.
he's going to need presidential votes for. DeSantis is now back in the governor's seat in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
And like I've said from the beginning, arguably the most powerful medical market in the country has flourished under the supervision of Ron DeSantis.
Yeah.
And hopefully this time next year, we'll be sitting on the guidelines for an adult use market coming out after it passes the ballot in November of 2024.
And not think so much about Iowa, right?
No, not at all. Well, he might have to think of Iowa if he's the if he's sitting as in the seat for vice president alongside Trump, but that's yet to be determined and a long ways away.
What do you think's next for him after yesterday's announcement? They could be appointed as VP. Yeah,
I think he'd easily be appointed as VP.
Yeah.
I don't know if he wants it, but I mean, I'm not a political analyst by any means. But if I'm Ron DeSantis, I'm very young in terms of political years.
Yeah.
I take the VP position. I'm VP under Trump. Trump's a one-term president. He's out. And then MAGA's got nowhere else to go other than DeSantis. Yep. DeSantis picks up the slack and probably rolls into the White House in 2028 to ultimately do what he wants to do, and it's run the country. I think DeSantis is one of the best leaders we have in government today. He's just not a good politician, and he's not very charismatic. He's got some growing to do.
Yeah, you can see that. It's just gone are the days from yesterday where it's just like baby steps. Start as a VP and then eventually segue, but everybody wants it all and wants it now. And you're not going to do that with Donald Trump running for office. It's just not going to happen.
If Trump wasn't there, DeSantis would probably be getting the nod for the Republicans.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think they were betting that Trump might have been in jail by now. Yeah. Or that other things would have happened. But yeah, seems like it's going to be Trump.
Getting back to your comment about Verano, though, like Air Wellness, that's one of the household names. Like you've talked about it before, where like Canopy Grow, like, trades on a proxy whenever there's any kind of announcements. But when you see a stock like Air, what was it up back in September? How much was it? 300%?
It's up 4x.
4x.
I think it was up 4x at the high.
And retraced completely back from, we're almost to it.
It didn't get quite there. I think it hit about $1.20 and then started to trend up again.
Yeah.
I got greedy. I was going to go back in at like 80 or 90 cents, and then it just started to go up, and I decided not to go back in.
Retail investing, emotional investing, to say the least, and they want to see that happen again. And that's why I see Verano is just being looked over right now. But you make a good point. It's got a good product. It's got quite a footprint. But when you think of Florida, you're obviously thinking about True Leaf.
Yeah, I mean, True Leaf's obviously got the most to benefit from adult use in Florida.
Yeah.
True Leaf will greatly benefit from adult use coming online in Florida.
Just a tad. All right, let's switch now to crypto, where it was announced that the country of Argentina took an historic leap with the adoption of using cryptocurrencies with everyday payments. So on paper, this is clearly a big announcement, not only for the industry and the country, but this also could have an impact as well on the global scale, from what I was reading and learning from the stance of Argentina's president, Javier Milei. What does he mean, I guess, by that stance on the global impact, knowing what Argentina just announced?
Yeah, so I mean, the big knock on crypto, the big knock on Bitcoin is not actually a currency. You can't actually use it in day-to-day transactions. Like, it's not recognized as an official currency. It has no merit in regards to that. What they're doing in Argentina is they're now actually enabling you via Tether and via a third party to use Bitcoin to submit rent payments
Yeah.
for your property. I think it's a step. I think it's a step in the right direction. Javier Milei is kind of adopting cryptos, such as what we saw in El Salvador. El Salvador didn't really time the market right, as there was a lot of volatility within them coming into the market and them actually adopting it. I'm curious to see how it rolls out in Argentina. I mean, Bitcoin is not able, from a transactions per second perspective, to be able to be used as a widely adopted currency.
We losing him there a bit, Mitch?
Yeah, Anthony, we're gonna get you some better internet, my friend. I think we lost him. He's smiling there though, at least.
Yeah. Well,
he'll be back in just a second. I'm gonna put him in the background.
Well, some of the stats I was bringing up, and this is probably our next headline, and it's some information that was released from crypto.com. Interesting stats that show the global growth of the overall industry. And we saw cryptocurrency owners increase by as much as 34% in 2023. Yeah. Like, that is huge, to say the least. Oh, sorry, he's still up, but huge growth, to say the least, as much as 34%.
Definitely. Look at this chart. Look at this chart. Like, describes a lot of it.
So it's grown from 432 million to 580 million owners.
Yeah. And so this just goes to show us, right? I mean, there's definitely some more ownership just staying in the game. The whole game has been hodl. Well, guess what? This is hodling, man. And at the end of the day, if you really believe that crypto is going to 100,000, well, then you should be holding, right? You shouldn't necessarily be selling out here.
Yeah.
You should be in more of a holding. And I think that the number one thing that everyone has to always remember with crypto is that it's finite, right? There's only a limited amount. And once all of it's gone and into everybody's hands, I mean, you're going to get to a point where the battle's going to be who has the most.
Yeah. Which makes you want to ask the question about BlackRock and stuff like that. That was approved, obviously, with the SEC earlier this month. But I'm looking at Bitcoin as well. It grew as much as 33%. Some of the stats that I wrote down here, Ethereum grew as much as 39%. So, as to your point, Mitch, it appears that, yes, there are still traders involved in this, but we're beginning to see more and more investors in this space. And common knowledge is that it's based on just people becoming more and more aware. These back. We're just highlighting, Anthony, while you were gone, just some of the growth numbers from crypto.com. But 432 million to 580 million crypto owners increase. That's 34% increase in one calendar year, which is huge growth, to say the least. But we're just seeing a ton of more and more investors in this space, and that's not going to slow down anytime soon.
No, I mean, if anything, I think you're going to start to see I think you're going to see a faster velocity of adoption with crypto assets. I mean, it's you're going to see real world assets being tokenized. You're going to see things such as insurance policies being tokenized, Bitcoin ETFs, Ethereum ETFs. I mean, crypto is here to stay. It's not it's actually pretty funny.
Anthony logged off at 4:20.
No, I mean, you're gonna
try to keep the straight face. You got to spark up a joint now, brother. Just fucking take a hoot.
Yeah, it's going to be, you're going to see a much quicker adoption of crypto.
Yeah.
With people now, especially as the technology catches up for people actually being able to use it, with much less resistance to actually coming on chain.
Yeah.
I would expect these numbers to keep trending to the upside in years to come. It's finally going to start to hit its period of adoption.
Yeah, well, I actually was reading a story on CNBC. It looks like trading options is going to be next. The CBO Exchange, which is the largest options exchange in the country, they filed with the SEC earlier this month to offer options like Bitcoin traded products. So as much as we've seen, 35 to 40% growth in this space amongst investors in the last 12 months, I'm really curious to see what that number is going to look like 12 months from now. And anything's on the table, but this is the year of crypto. I think this is definitely the year for crypto.
I think it's the year that'll be deemed to go. It went mainstream. It's now in 401ks. BlackRock is now behind it. Fidelity's now behind it. The only people that you saw really get or not change their stance was Vanguard, who's actually not allowing Bitcoin ETFs within their portfolios. So, this is probably going to be 2024 is the year crypto actually went mainstream.
Yeah, 100%. Juan Rivera writes, Florida rec will be a boost to the MJ business. Over 600 dispensaries already. Seems like a gold mine. I think it's going to be the largest cannabis market in the world if they get adult use passed later this year. And I think many people will agree with that.
Yeah, it could be. I think it's going to be here in New York. Florida, you're going to see probably about a $6 billion market. They're forecasting to get up to an $8 billion market come 2029, 2030. And it's going to probably just keep growing. It could easily be one of the largest markets in the world.
Did I see John Verville write Bitcoin to 15K? Let's go. Is that a typo?
John Verville also said fade Solana when I called Solana at like $30 and then it proceeded to go to 120. So I'm not going to take John Verville's crypto price targets.
John, the sweater hoodie is on its way. We want to see pictures once you get it, brother. I'm still looking for the crypto killer DAP. Fingers crossed, writes jazzcat.eth. There was another one. I don't know if you're familiar with this, Anthony. Where was the question? What's your thoughts on UMA crypto coin? Ever heard of it?
I've never heard of that.
Neither have I. Sorry, we couldn't help you on that one, Adam. All right, that wraps up Into the Wire, headlining all the headlines or biggest headlines in the crypto, cannabis, psychedelic, and AI industries. Let's now switch to segment number 2, which is our daily movers section. So we begin with, it looks like if Donald Trump wins, so does this stock for investors, and more notably, Digital World Acquisition Corp, which trades on the NASDAQ under the ticker symbol DWAC, DWAC. So fill us in as to why you're watching this and the correlation it has with Donald Trump.
Look at the candle.
That's
look at the candle on the screen.
Candle.
I think it's interesting to watch. I'm not going to play it. I'm not buying it. It is moving. I think people do flock to this and find it interesting once Donald starts to get more into the media. It's going to be interesting to watch. I'm going to be curious to see the price action, how it rises and falls. But it does move, and it does move quick on news.
All right. So for the use hiding under the rock is a special purpose acquisition corporation, otherwise known as a SPAC, aiming to merge with Trump Media and Technology Group, the company responsible for the Truth Social app led by former President Donald Trump.
I would expect to see Truth Social have an influx of new users and activity as his campaign ramps up, as he is using his Instagram and his Twitter, but he's not really using them. He's more so getting everything on Truth Social.
Well, once he was kind of fed those papers where it's just like his Twitter account got pushed out and he focused on this primarily, it's dollars and cents. The guy understands.
I miss the tweets though. Trump's tweets were the best. Just crazy unhinged tweets coming from the White House every morning. It was a time to be alive on Twitter.
You could say that basically say that big time, but I think, I don't know, I'm one of those guys where I'm just like, just focus on being a good president. That's not going to happen. I know that's entertainment, but at the end of the day, it's just like, what was that guy tweeting? How many times per day?
Oh, it's great. He was tweeting about everything.
And he was tweeting at like 2-3 in the morning, was he not?
Yeah, they didn't even need to have press briefings.
Yeah.
Trump was just tweeting all day long, and it was during COVID.
Did you see
Which was,
the podcast that Tucker Carlson had with John Daly and Kid Rock? They talked a little bit about Trump. Said the guy's
No.
just, 77, 78 years old. The engine that he has, the guy gets like maybe 3-4 hours of sleep, as if, the average person would get 8. Daly also was drinking a Dad Coke, and then Tucker Carlson chirped at him saying, "You like those a lot." And he's like, "Not as much as Big Daddy Trump, who said he polishes about 25 or 30 of those a day."
That's so much sugar. That's
Oof.
enough sugar to be diabetic.
Ooh, well,
Like,
it's working for him.
Sure.
Next up, we talked about off the top, cannabis getting a bid, and with the announcement, Trulieve. You're watching it. Why? Obviously, for the main reason I just
I am
outlined,
watching
right?
it. I am watching it because Kim Rivers will be printing money over a Trulieve if Florida adult use and 280E winds up getting rescinded via Schedule 3. Trulieve is the cheapest Tier 1 MSO out there.
What do you mean by that?
They're cheap from a market cap perspective. They're cheaper than Verano. They're cheaper than GTI. I think the Trulieve has there's a lot to be liked with Trulieve as it relates to this news. The Florida adult use news is massive. It is paradigm shifting for Trulieve. They're also looking like they're going to be opening up shop in Alabama as per their appeal to the license. They also won licenses in New Jersey, and they've got Georgia that's ramping up. Trulieve is slowly fortifying its position of out-of-state cannabis markets, and Florida speaks for itself.
Yeah.
I mean, if they can get a 10% share of a $6 billion market, which right now she's got, I think, 38% on a weekly basis.
Think about
just,
that.
just,
Max,
just do the numbers.
When you break down those numbers, like a 38, even if you got 30%.
That's $2.4 billion a year just from Florida.
What's its market cap right now?
1.45 billion, I think.
And that's one state.
Yeah.
And doesn't include rescheduling. Yeah. I'm surprised, actually, when you think it's the cheapest amongst all the other MSOs.
I don't think it's the cheapest. It is the cheapest.
I know.
From a market cap perspective amongst the Tier 1 MSOs. Yeah.
Now you start to add up the numbers and you see the potential as to why so many people are interested in this space, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's if you're bullish on Florida, I mean, Trulieve is how to play Florida.
Yeah. Lucifer, I think they fell from Tier 1, if that's your take. What? No. I don't think they've fallen from Tier 1, buddy. All right, that wraps up their Daily Wire. I should say the Daily Wire, Daily Movers. Big shout out to Ben Shapiro and the crew for saying the Daily Wire. But anyways, that wraps up our Daily Movers section. So coming up later this week, looking at a few guests, we're going to have Doug Drysdale from Cybin on. Need to get an update from him. I'm happy to announce that we confirmed today. I know some of you have been asking some questions based on a certain personality that hasn't been joining us as much on our podcast, but we're going with a strategy this year. We're going to have some of the biggest name thought leaders on a regular basis. So happy to share that Dan Aarons from Advisor Shares MSOs ETF. We're going to do Mondays with Dan every single week. So what we want to do, and we've heard from a lot of you people from some of the feedback over the course of the last few months, that having Anthony and I, along with some of the biggest name thought leaders in the space, it gets the most value out of what you guys are seeing and hearing. So that is going to be kicking off next Monday. We'll be having weekly updates with Dan. We've got a few other things that we're working on as well, but it should be a good segment as we get regular updates from him and the stuff that we'll learn, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be great to have Dan on a weekly basis on Mondays. It'll be good to get the week started off with MSOS.
Absolutely. And that is only going to grow rapidly as this year progresses. John Verville writes, update on DC. I will reach out to Don Murphy.
DC?
I assume he's talking
Yeah,
about
I'm sure. I'd love to actually hear from Don now that Boris was saying that we could potentially be getting a safe vote. David Klein. He's talking about David Klein will be on next month, post earnings.
Yes, we confirmed with the Canopy crew. We're actually doing a pre-record on Friday, February 9th. And then we'll figure it out if we're going to push it out later that day or first thing Monday. But we've got a lot of content we're going to be producing with Canopy Growth beginning next month. Yep. So whether that's constant updates with interviews with David, editorial stuff that we'll post in the Dales Report, a reminder that we've got full in-depth equity research reports. We're providing coverage on 1 to 2 companies per week. So if you want to find out and think about what analysts think and how they're basically looking at certain companies, make sure to log on to thedalesreport.com and subscribe to our daily newsletter. It'll give you kind of an inside look as to how a lot of our analysts think, including our very own Bill McNarlin, who's been incredible at putting a lot of this stuff together, and a few research reports that we've already done. Some of the feedback that we've gotten from some of our companies in this space are saying that it's one of the best, if not the best, equity research reports that they've seen. So we've got a lot of growth opportunities. If you want access to that, as I said, log on to thedalesreport.com, subscribe to our newsletter. And yeah, we should have a lot of content with Mr. Klein beginning next month. Outside of that, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll check back in with you on. Go ahead,
Henry. El Guapo will be back on Friday.
He will be on. Week. Speaking of regular guests, what do you guys think? Should we have Guap on quite a bit? That was kind of a hit before Christmas. Guy knows his stuff, and he's got quite a personality. So let us know what you think. If you guys think we should have Fridays with Guap, let's do Fridays with Guap. What do you think? See you later. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information. Share this video with your network, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because we would